Hi guys, and welcome to the Business as Unusual show. It is Wednesday, it is the 11th of November. We are on episode number 51 of day 246 of when the original kind of move to working from home started. And things are just, I'd say they're kind of normal, but they're so unnormal at the same time, and it's kind of we're getting used to it. So let's have a quick look at what's going on this week within the news as well. So it is it's a week of lockdown V2, so it's under our belts. We've had a whole week so far of the second version of lockdown. I hope it's going okay for you guys. It feels a sort of little bit less challenging than the first one, hopefully. We've also seen Donald Trump as well, who has unfortunately not come out with as many votes as he likes to think he has, and not won the election by quite some distance. We've seen Prime Minister Johnson announced the news that we've all been hoping for, with the possibility of a COVID-19 vaccine programme, which is fantastic. And we have also seen that in the UK, custard and gravy sales have gone through the roof during lockdown, as well as we all strive for a little bit more of those old school home comforts. So it's a crazy week. Put your comfy socks on, grab yourself a hot bottle. It's time for another Business as Unusual. Hi guys, and welcome to the Business as Unusual show. If you are tuning in for the first time, please do check out our social content. We've got loads of stuff going out on YouTube, on LinkedIn, all around helping you to take those first steps into digital marketing or take your current digital marketing to the next levels. This is our Business as Unusual show, which we started back in March, when the world went upside down, to try to hopefully bring people together, share some ideas, and make isolation feel a little bit less isolating. We're still going strong as we reach episode 51, would you believe? And today we've got fantastic guests. We've got Damian Collins MP for Folkestone Hythe, as also involved with the Digital Culture and Media Sports Select Committee. So there's loads of stuff that we're going to be talking about with Damian. So let's introduce him now. Damian, how are you doing, sir?
Good to see you.
Likewise. And can you maybe give us a quick introduction to some of the sort of the work that you do, particularly within the sort of digital and culture and media and sports select committee? It's a bit of a mouthful, but could you give us a bit of an introduction to what that kind of thing entails?
Yeah, so I was chairman of the select committee for 3 years, and during that time we did a lot of work looking at tech issues. We did a big inquiry which ran for about 18 months on disinformation, online disinformation, where we also investigated the Cambridge Analytica scandal as well, and interviewed a lot of the key players, including the chief exec of Cambridge Analytica, about that. And then we followed that up with an inquiry looking at immersive and addictive technologies, looking at the amount of time people spend online, what they spend it doing, how those technologies have been developed to encourage people to spend more time online, and this whole battle for people's attention that exists online and on social media and with gaming. So to understand what the sort of policy implications of that should be, and what we need to do to make sure that is a good experience for people. And then the committee covers a large variety of topics, but another issue that I think has been topical in the last couple of days, and something we looked at quite a lot when I was chairman, is sort of sports governance and corruption in sport. And I think we see that there are important topical issues, and sport has been very badly affected by COVID, and that's thrown up lots of big challenges for sport and how we keep sports clubs going and football clubs going and things like that.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, some really, really fascinating topics that you're involved with, and more recently you've been doing some work around sort of disinformation related to COVID and what that can mean as well, because obviously the virus in itself is obviously hugely damaging, but the information, if that's not the correct information, could be equally or even more so. Could you sort of expand on some of the work that you've been doing there?
Yeah, so I set up an organisation called Infotagion, which you can find at infotagion.com, and we set that up as a crowdsourced fact-checking service. So we asked people to send us things they were seeing about COVID that they thought needed checking, and then we would check it and post the results on the Infotagen website. And I think we saw this at the start of COVID and really all the way through, is that this is because it's something new and it's affected all of our lives, whether or not we've had the virus or not. But yeah, we don't entirely know where it started, how it spread. We think we've got a good idea, but we don't know for certain. And that's a perfect environment for disinformation to spread. And there may be many people that seen the concerns raised in the past about disinformation and said, well, I would never be swayed by something I saw on Facebook. But then you look at people's reaction to coronavirus and some of the conspiracy theories about it, in particular, the fact we saw earlier in the year, arson attacks on mobile phone masts, because some people wrongly believed that 5G mobile signals were causing coronavirus. You can see the impact the disinformation can have. And as we've got good news this week that Pfizer's are in the late stages of testing their vaccine, which so far has had a 90% success rate. And that could be one of the key things we need to get us out of the COVID world. One of the biggest threats we'll face in deploying that vaccine will be giving people confidence to take it. And there are quite a lot of people that have been persuaded by totally baseless conspiracy theories about the vaccine who may not take it. And so fighting disinformation around COVID has been very important this year and will be massively important next year. And there's obviously been a heightened interest as well in disinformation around the American presidential election, both up to polling day and in the week or so since.
Yeah, I mean, fascinating. And I mean, first question around that is where do these things start, and why do they start? So take the kind of the 5G one as an example. What's the sort of the objective of the person that starts that? Is there a malicious intent? What's the sort of the origins of those sorts of things that that potentially could be then damaging to people, the information that they get?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, and there can be different reasons why people do this. If we look at the involvement of foreign states in spreading disinformation, why would Russia or a country like Russia be interested in spreading disinformation? And people that do it maliciously rather than just to create spam content to make money, and there are some people that do it to create spam content that'll make money because the algorithms of social media, they favor engagement. That's the metric they work on. They want to get as much of your attention as possible. And sometimes salacious disinformation can be more engaging than the truth. Yeah. So people do it to make money. But people who do it maliciously, why do they do it? Often they're not trying to make you believe a counterfact. What they're trying to do is put doubt in your mind so that you don't know what to believe. And that is the outcome they're looking for. They're looking to undermine people's confidence in the government, in public health authorities, in traditional media, to leave people in a state where they've no idea really what's true and what's not. They don't know who to believe, and their confidence in the main institutions has been undermined. Steve Bannon, who was Donald Trump's strategist in 2016, he's called this sort of flood the zone, which is a way of almost attacking the media as much as other institutions, where you just flood the zone with rubbish on social media and people just see all sorts of different stuff. There's a huge amount of it. It crowds out legitimate sources of information and just leaves people kind of dazed and confused. Yeah. And that can be a really bad outcome in a public health emergency, where it's really important that people understand the key thing. Now, the 5G phone example, I think, is a really good example of how a mad conspiracy theory can suddenly become adopted, and people are not only sharing information about it, but they're acting on it as well. And during the American presidential election, we've seen, in the last week or so, this extraordinary Stop the Steal campaign, which hundreds of thousands of people signed up for, based on a totally baseless assertion that the American election has been stolen through fraudulent ballots. And there, actually, the issue is not so much, is it Russian disinformation? Is it some weird group? It's actually being largely propagated and driven by Donald Trump, by the sitting president, who is relentlessly putting out these messages, and people are acting on it. People are taking to the streets. We saw, Steve Bannon, again, no longer working for Donald Trump, but has been engaged in this sort of activity, been linked to it. There was a message I was told where they'd even encouraged people to go out and behead Dr. Fauci. So this is serious stuff. And one of the most egregious examples of what disinformation can do to take a niche conspiracy theory and turn it into a movement, is this extraordinary movement called QAnon. This grew out of one of the best known disinformation stories in 2016 during the presidential election then, which is about a pizza parlor in Washington where supposedly a paedophile gang with links to the Democrats and Hollywood celebrities was keeping children locked in a basement of this pizza parlor. And someone actually turned up with a gun to rescue the children. Of course, the whole thing was made up, and the pizza parlor didn't even have a basement, let alone have any of that sort of horrible stuff going on in it. There's a movement come out of that called QAnon, of people that believe this idea of this paedophile ring linked to these high-profile people and to the Democrat Party, and that they're on a mission to expose it. During the campaign, there was a theory going around that John F. Kennedy's son, JFK Jr., who died a good number of years ago, was going to come back from the dead to be Donald Trump's running mate. But there were also people taken to the streets in protest, and demonstrating, and people have got real concerns about whether that could lead to violence. But an increasingly large number of people are part of these movements and believe what they see. And the way social media is designed, the more you engage with this sort of content, the more you see of it. And I think it's a really big question for our times. Is there's no doubt over the last few years, politics, society has become more divided, become more polarized. Is social media just a reflection of that, or is social media driving that polarization?
Yeah, interesting.
And my theory really is driving it. The idea of a sort of a movement of crazy and unpleasant conspiracy theories like QAnon could suddenly become a big thing on the internet. That wouldn't, or a big movement in society, that would not have been possible 10 years ago or 20 years ago, but it is now. And that's why I think we need to take these issues really seriously. And it's not about an individual story or an individual message, but the constant drumbeat of disinformation and harmful content that some people are being exposed to in increasingly large volumes. And the outcome of that is, doubt, confusion, belief in untruths and conspiracy theories, which is bad during a pandemic, but it's bad for democracy long term.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, and as you say, it kind of creates the challenge of what's true, what's not true, and that's then sort of allows people to be a bit more open to any information, wherever that source kind of may come from. We're just going to jump into something slightly more light-hearted at this point, just to kind of get, this is the tenuous link. This is related very, very tenuously to yourself, Damian. And what we're looking at the moment is the tie with your second name, so everything related to Collins. So what word that made it into the Collins dictionary was announced as the word of the year for 2020? Was it coronavirus, lockdown, BLM, or Megxit? What do you think?
I want to say Megxit, but I think coronavirus must have been because it's such a brilliant word. And the Sun I think the Sun came up with it for their front page. I mean, coronavirus and Black Lives Matter have been around beforehand, so I want to say Megxit, but I'm going to say lockdown.
I love that there's so much logic has just been applied to that answer. That's about 67% more logic that's normally applied to this quiz. You are absolutely correct. It is lockdown. Off to a good start. On to question number 2. In January 1989, Phil Collins, see what I did, was voted the 4th most popular radio artist for 1989 in France. Who was number 1?
Ooh,
So 1989.
Is it a French artist?
It is not a French artist, no.
1989. Rick Astley.
Astley. It is in fact Kylie.
Obvious.
That's now we see that. Question number 3. What was the name of Joan Collins' character in the hit TV show Dynasty? Have you ever seen Dynasty?
Yeah, so she was Alexis Colby.
Wowzers, this is impressive so far. Normally, I have no idea. Right, okay. Question number 4. Which of these is not a famous Collins?
Oh, it's the third. It's the third guy. What's his name?
This chap in the middle.
So
hang on, this one.
Yeah.
Okay, that is absolutely correct. It's Colin Farrell. He's just plain old Colin, not Collins at all. I think, Damien, you'd be pretty good on a pub quiz team. Is that something that you used to do when the pubs are open?
No. I've not done very much pub quizzes, but I was many years ago when I was a student. I was on the the very first series of University Challenge that Jeremy Paxman.
Really? Interesting. What did you have did you get to do a sort of specialist topic? Did you?
Well, no. I mean, usually people on the team have got different things that they
excel.
they
What was your area that you tried to generally cover?
Well, I was the historian on the team, and
of course.
I did the history and current affairs and politics stuff was kind of my stuff. And we had someone else who was studying theology and someone classics.
Which would mean that you are going to be epic at pub quizzes. So, okay, when the pubs are back open and there's a quiz on, I'm going to, well, it'll certainly be a phone a friend. So, okay, question number 5. Today's Collins Dictionary word of the day is Ubuntu. But what does it mean? Humanity and kindness, caution and readiness. This is from South Africa, by the way. Caution and readiness, sorrow and remembrance, shock and disbelief.
Well, as today's Armistice Day, Remembrance Sunday was on Sunday, I'm going to say sorrow and remembrance.
I see what you did there. There was actually too much logic applied to that answer. It was, in fact, humanity and kindness. But I'll tell you what.
I don't know.
You said it with confidence, which is great. So, but it didn't pay off this time, unfortunately. But I'll tell you what, that is a pretty impressive sort of result there. We don't normally get that good a response, or not that good a performance, I have to say. We've had some zeros scored previously, so that is impressive. Cool, what time are we now? We are unbelievably, you'll like this is a very relevant halfway mark. And as soon as we do this, we're going to jump into a bit of a promo video and come back and carry on the conversation with Damian. It's the halfway mark. Cambridge Analytica, who are they?
Social media, is it really worth it? I'd love to talk to you about that subject, but I can answer the question right now. The answer is no. No, I'm just kidding. We no longer go online to fulfill a need, to complete an action, to buy something. We kind of live our lives. You know, we're always connected. We've become very, very good at ignoring the stuff that we're not interested in. As advertisers and marketers, we really have to think carefully about what does doing it right actually mean. We have massive reach and a huge potential audience, but we don't have the attention that we once had.
Welcome back to part 2. I'm having to quickly change over my headphones because the batteries have run out, as they do with all Apple products. I love Apple. I couldn't do it live on there. I'm a big fan. So yeah, we were talking previously, just before the break there, a lot about sort of the challenges of disinformation and the sort of the long-term kind of impact of that. The promo video you've just seen there, we will be speaking at the B2B event. It was obviously a live event that we had booked last year. It's been delayed a few times. We are doing it remotely, so there's going to be a whole series of talks that we're going to be delivering there. So if you are interested in hearing some of those, you can sign up for that, I believe, on our website as well. So more information will be available there. So, right, getting back to it, we were kind of deep in the midst of the challenges and the impact that has. What do you think the sort of the last 6 months, and particularly with almost the last 4 years with Donald Trump and his approach to the truth will mean for and again, like you say, the approach to the truth, because it's been a new thing. It's there's talk of the sort of the post-truth society where actually who can say what who owns the truth as such. What does that mean for politics in the future, and what does that mean for communications and how that be impacted?
Well, I mean, it's a new thing to have senior political figures like the President of the United States, lie basically on a and not just by saying, well, quoting, favorably quoting statistics, trying to give a wrong impression, but just to come out with things and assertion for which there is absolutely no evidence or basis at all, on which they can't present. So that is a kind of new thing. It's not a good thing, and we need to move on from that. We need to set higher standards, and I hope that will come with a new administration in America. I think it has posed the question, though, this year, was a combination of the scrutiny of the performance of social media companies in dealing with disinformation about the presidential election, and also about COVID. Yeah. Is a sense of what responsibilities do they have? Where is the line then between freedom of speech, the right to express what you want, and a requirement that may come that social media companies act against harmful content on their platforms, and who decides what harmful content is. Now, I think in America, the debate is really focused on amplification. So, yeah, you can say what you like, but if what you say is then amplified by the tools of social media, by its algorithms and its recommendation tools, to drive that to a massive audience, that's not a freedom of speech right. You don't have the right to reach that audience. And the companies themselves need to be responsible for what they allow to go viral, what they allow to amplify to a big audience on their platforms, and that's where they could be required to step in.
And so that's the sort of line that you're trying to suggest to be struck. That there's a kind of allow for the freedom of speech, but at the same time, then don't amplify things that are clearly not accurate.
Yeah, and so there's a study that Facebook conducted in 2016, which wasn't published but was leaked this year to the media, and that looked at sort of hate speech in Germany. Was the study they did, and they showed that 60% of people in Germany that joined Facebook groups where extremist content was being shared did so at the recommendation of Facebook. So the algorithm was directing them towards content they thought they might like. On YouTube, it's estimated that on YouTube, 70% of what people watch on YouTube is played for them by the platform using the next up feature. And so but that does mean that maybe some people that have engaged with conspiracy material, disinformation, who will see more of it because the platform directs them towards what it thinks they want to see. And so that area of application is an area where the companies have responsibility. And if they have responsibility, they could also have some sort of liability as well. And there's this big debate in America now about changing the law in America so that the platform neutrality laws that exist could be changed and create specific examples and circumstances where the tech companies could be required to act, and if they fail to act, could be regulated and audited to discover why they failed. Now, I think there's particular interest in now that Joe Biden has won. He was critical of Facebook during the campaign. His campaign team have been very critical that Facebook haven't done more to stop this sort of stop the steal sort of movement that's trying to suggest the election was a fraud. There was, an example of this was Sacha Baron Cohen, the actor. He tweeted a picture a few days ago, and it was a picture of Mark Zuckerberg meeting Donald Trump. And the caption he put under it was "one down, one to go." Now, that's interesting in its own right, but Sacha Baron Cohen has been quite outspoken about this. What was more interesting was a man called Bill Russo, who's the head of communications for the Biden campaign. He replied to that message saying, "Hell yes." And then has followed up with a Twitter post listing a whole series of things that Facebook have failed to act against in good time. And so I think that shows we could have a government in America which, whilst wanting to be a friend of technology and recognizing the benefits to society that technology has brought us, and we wouldn't be having this conversation in this way and hopefully being watched by other people without it. But there are some downsides too that need to be looked at seriously now. And I think we're going to have that serious and I hope mature and responsible debate over the next few years. And it's something I've been part of here, but I think the new government in America will give this more focus than it's had before.
Yeah, really, really interesting. I've got some slightly bizarre comments from chat that I'm going to throw out there. Firstly, Damian, do you think the Earth is flat? Just to clear this one up, maybe. Hopefully.
No, the Earth is.
Okay.
The Earth is, yeah.
Good to know. Good. Did we really land on the moon? This is another conspiracy theory.
Yeah, we did.
Good to know. We're getting through that. We're flying through these questions. How true are the rumours of chlorinated chicken and poor food standards hitting UK food shelves? This is a bit more tricky one. Food shelves if a trade agreement is reached, despite Biden suggesting that it's not going to happen. That's Alexi Consulting. What do you? Because I know there are some differences in food standards, isn't there, between the UK market and the American market?
Yeah. And we've said that we won't allow. The government has said it won't in reaching a trade agreement with the US, which we haven't done yet. And indeed, that will almost certainly now be negotiated with a new government that may have different priorities in America. But that we won't allow food to be imported into the UK that doesn't meet our food welfare standards. And but at the same time, I don't think people would buy it, even if we did let it in. So that's what people want. So we don't want to see trade agreements undermining our very good food safety and animal welfare regulations that we have here.
Fantastic. Good to know. Hopefully that puts that one to rest for now, at least. There's just another comment as well, which is a really good observation, actually, from Alexi Consulting. Twitter have actively been marking Trump's tweets as spreading unfounded claims of fraud under each of his tweets. It's good. That's a good step, isn't it? But at the same time, it's quite a bold step. Obviously, you've got the current sitting American president, and then a social media network is having to reach out because of exactly what you said. It's freedom of speech, but actually it could be damaging in itself.
Yeah, and I think we're in sort of new territory here. And again, we're also seeing that the different tech companies are approaching this in different ways. You know, Twitter have done more than Facebook have done. They have marked these tweets as being problematic, but you can still view them. They take the text down as you see it in your feed, but you can still click on the tweet and see what it originally said. There are some fears that if you do that, does it make it even more likely people are going to read it? Because if Twitter have censored the president's, well, not censored,
yeah,
they put a filter over the president's tweet, you think, well, what on earth has he said this time? So it makes you even more determined to read it. So is it effective? I don't know. I mean, I think the Trump campaign and its supporters have been very effective at creating this big movement now online with millions of posts, groups with hundreds of thousands of people in, who are actually campaigning on the premise that the election was a fraud and doesn't stand, and that Trump won. And nothing that the social media companies have done so far has stopped that. And so I think whilst we've seen them do things they've never done before, I think we probably have to say, what we've got at the moment still isn't working.
Yeah, no. So I mean, it's a challenging one, and no doubt going to be lots of conversations back and forth to try to reach some. Sort of...
But I think the premise though is right. If we're going to call out information, people that spread it, there shouldn't be one rule for one group and another for others, and say that, well, we're going to clamp down on an organisation doing it, but if the president does it, we won't do anything. You've got to have a consistent approach.
Interesting. I've just seen it. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I've just had a message come through. On fire today, Alexei Consulting Group. So Biden suggested, and I don't know how true this is, maybe you've got some insight, Damian. Biden is suggesting that he won't agree any trade terms with the UK unless Boris rips up the withdrawal agreement and ensures that the Good Friday Agreement, which Biden was instrumental in, is honoured.
Well, I mean, we will honour the Good Friday Agreement, which we are co-signatories. So I don't think there's any question of us doing anything we think would undermine the Good Friday Agreement. And actually, at the heart of the Brexit withdrawal agreement that was agreed at the end of last year is the principle of consent for the people of Northern Ireland. So if the people of Northern Ireland said, well, we'd rather have a regulatory environment which was more like Ireland than the UK, then they could vote through the Northern Ireland Assembly to do that. If they said, no, actually, we'd rather be more closely aligned with the UK than the rest of the island of Ireland, they could make that choice too. So, and that was the principle that's at the heart of the Good Friday Agreement, the principle of consent, and that the people of Northern Ireland collectively should decide their future and not be bound to one position or another. So, and obviously, I think like Joe Biden, like we all do, sort of takes the Good Friday Agreement very seriously because it's been the basis of peace in Northern Ireland for since it was signed.
Fantastic. Apparently that was fresh from CNN, which is good because I think it was from Fox News. I think that could have been a whole different... Yeah. I think they're still probably talking about something else right now.
There's been a lot of speculation about how well will Boris get on with Joe Biden, but it's been reported that the first call Biden made to a European head of government was to Boris Johnson. Yeah. So Joe Biden worked with David Cameron's government when he was vice president, and I'm sure we'll want a good relationship with us in the future as well, as we do with them.
Brilliant, fantastic. We are quickly running out of time, but I just think if there's one, and it's probably not an easy, quick answer, but obviously you're involved with the FA as well, and obviously Greg Clarke yesterday stepping down. I know you were talking to Sky News about this earlier. What sort of the kind of the message or the key message that you were discussing there?
Well, I mean, Greg Clarke's resigned because of comments that he made yesterday that I think people would have found offensive, and it's not the first time this has happened. And I think he, as someone leading the national governing body of our national game of football, I think he's someone who really lacked credibility in that role. And this is a very difficult time for the country and for sports, and there are many football fans who are frustrated they can't get into their grounds. There are many coaches and parents who are players who are very upset that grassroots football has stopped because of the second lockdown. There are ongoing issues about trying to make football more diverse in terms of people from diverse backgrounds who are working in football administration or working as coaches or managers of teams. And we really need a leader that inspires confidence, that fans think is on their side, that players think is on their side, that is a leader that is trying to help resolve the terrible financial problems many clubs in communities face now, because they can't have any fans paying to watch to see them play, but they've got to carry on playing anyway. And we need someone that can be a sort of figure and a champion for the football family. And that's something that I think has been lacking from the FA for a number of years. I think, the incidents yesterday in front of the select committee led to Greg Clarke's resignation, but I think it had been time for him to move on for some years now.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you very much. That's been absolutely fascinating. Thank you very much for your insights, and best of luck with the challenges. We had so many comments in chat. I know. We've got loads of stuff coming in. Just keep going, don't stop. I know. And then we've got loads of comments coming in, but we are very much out of time. But thank you very much for those insights, and again, best of luck with the challenges that lay ahead. No doubt, there's going to be a few, I suspect, in the coming months. So best of luck with that.
Thanks a lot, Luke. Good to see you.
Guys, that is it from us today. Wow, it's we have made our first foray into the world of politics, and that was, as you can see, some fantastic insight there from Damian. We will be going that way again next week, where we have Laura Davidson of Labour Council for Folkestone Central on the show as well. So save your questions up for Laura. We can put those to her next week on Wednesday. We'll be back at the same time as ever. It's been a crazy world, and it's getting crazier by the day, but hopefully there's some light at the end of the tunnel. But regardless, it's just business as unusual.